Welcome to TheatreCast, presented by the EdReach Network, giving educators a voice, a big voice. You've reached episode number 73, being recorded March 15th, 2015. Beware the Ides of March.
Ooh.
This is the show where theater teachers and professionals share their passion for theater trends, share practical advice and tips, and ask questions of some of theater's most innovative collaborators. I'm Nick Cusumano, one of the co-hosts of TheatreCast, and joining me, as always, my partner in crime is Danielle Filas.
Coming to you from the amazing metropolis of Columbus, Ohio. Hello, everybody.
And joining us from New Jersey is Rosalie Tenseth. She is someone that I connected with on Twitter, and we've become fast friends, though we've only chatted over the internet like twice prior to the broadcast. But she is going to offer some great advice, tips, and we can learn from her path that she's kind of taken. And I think Rosalie, already in our short chats, is really good about helping actors determine what kind of their branding, what's how best to put yourself out there. And Rosalie, along with being an actor, a writer, producer, and many other hyphenates, teaches acting with it's the Acting Academy.
Right. It's called the Acting Academy in New Jersey. Randolph.
And you started a really interesting project or way of helping your students, and can you kind of tell us about that? I just in a little chat before we started the show, it sounds like just a great adventure and a great thing for your students and the rest of us to learn from.
Yes, I think what happened was I decided to start this Acting Academy because I was pregnant, and so it was a little hard to get a huge amount of work for pregnant chicks. So I was like, I could coach, and I've coached my whole life on and off, more friends and whatnot, and had taught when I was back in Minneapolis to kind of supplement my income, but I really loved it. And when I got here, I thought, well, while I'm, with child, etc., I should actually just start coaching kids. And the more and more I was doing it, we had a huge musical theater program for a while. I had in people from Broadway, Phantom, Annie Golden is a regular coming out to work with the kids, and Mike McGowan, who's been in Apple Tree and the producers, and all sorts of different friends that that I've worked with over the years that were like, yeah, let's do it. And we call it Acting with Pros. The Acting Academy, come work and play with professionals. And then as my child has gotten older, he decided, not by my choice whatsoever, but he decided when I had him at commercial auditions and needed somebody to watch him, that the other women who were in my type would sit and watch him while I ate a bag of chips while I'd go into the auditions. and he would, I would always say, hey, I'm going to go in and meet the people. And one day he said to me, I want to go in and meet the people. And I was like, nah, you really don't want to meet the people. And he was like, no, I want to. So he is now also, at the age of 7, a professional actor. He's in the union. He's SAG-AFTRA. And you may have seen him actually, the latest 2 things he did was he played Amy Adams' son on Saturday Night Live. And the serial parody that they did of that podcast, speaking of podcasts. And so he's doing, he's got a career now as well. So as I started doing more acting because he became older and I could get out and do more work again, I kind of narrowed my focus of what I was doing down to being a little more kids who are really much more disciplined and serious and focused, and who may not, some kids who want to go pro, and also kids that were pro, coaching them for their auditions, and also kids that are getting ready for their school auditions. So it's very specific. They're getting ready for a very specific thing. So I always kind of audition my students first. I look at them first and see if we're a good fit, And then what happened was, while I had the studio opened, a guy from LA just showed up on my doorstep, and he had moved due to some family situations to Mendham, and he was like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, "Oh, take a look at the classes," and some of the kids that I privately coach. And he said he was a film director, and he said, "Well, what do you think about actually creating a film for them?" And I was like, "That's terrific." So we did. We shot 3 films in 1 year, short films. But it was nuts,
That
and
is ambitious.
it was beyond ambitious. But when we're talking about branding, which I don't even thought I would have never used the word branding. I guess some people use the word typing, but then I started working with Bonnie Gillespie, who's a casting director out in LA, taking some of her online classes, and she's fantastic, and she calls it branding. So she calls it branding, and she calls it bullseyeing. If you read her book, she's got a great book called SMFA, Self-Management for Actors. And so now I'm calling it branding just because I've been working with her. But what I was doing when I wrote those films was just trying to get my students to be cast in roles that they potentially could be seen by casting directors and agents, and they would go, "Oh yeah, I totally see them playing these types of roles. This is fantastic." So what I started doing was improvisation with kids, and I would find out, okay, listen, what do they like to play? Where do they feel at home? Where's their, what you would call a bullseye? What is the thing that they do the best? The thing that a casting director is going to go, yes, I could see them in that role right now, and then create a film for them. Now, those first 3 films, I'm going to tell you, the production values were just not great. However, we still got into film festivals, which was shocking. And I would get letters back saying, "Listen, we love what you're doing. We love the acting. The kids are fantastic." Well, of course, because we rehearsed, you know what I mean? And they were cast perfectly because I wrote the roles for them. And so some of the festivals, like, I don't know if you know Providence, Rhode Island, it's a pretty big festival, and it's nice, and they have a kids contingent, and they were like, "We love what you're doing here, but your production values need to come up." And so when I went to go to this last film, Failure Groupies, I was like very determined that we were going to produce a for-real, gorgeous film. We shot it on a red scarlet. We had an outrageously good crew. I got together with a woman named Mandira Chauhan, who's a director. Both of our films were at the Garden State Film Festival, and at the time, it was in Asbury Park. It's now in Atlantic City. In fact, I'm going there next week with this film. But I had 2 of my films in there at that time, and she had one of her films. And we really hit it off. I mean, I hit it off with her. And initially, I thought, well, maybe I'll use her for sound because she said she could do sound. But then she was like, I really like directing. And because I was going to be so busy working with the kids and their acting and really coaching them on the acting so that it would be stunning, it was great to have somebody who was a director who could set up all the shot lists, work with the DP. She went out, she's been working on sets, a lot of independent films, so she was able to help me hire the crew. And you know what? We had an outrageously fantastic crew. So we shot that in the Thanksgiving weekend of 14, and it was done and edited, and I submitted just a rough cut of it to the Montclair Film Festival, which I didn't think. I just thought, ooh, it's in Jersey. It's near, blah, blah, blah. Little did I know Stephen Colbert was going to be there. It's like a huge, it's a really great festival, but I don't think a lot of people, I didn't know the festival circuit very well, but this was incredible to have our premiere there. So we premiered at the Montclair Film Festival, and, it just caught fire. We've been in 14, 15 festivals, and we have 5 coming up since then. It's including California. We've been in San Diego, we've been in San Francisco, we've been in Santa Monica, and we won the First Glance on LA online contest. So we are going to be at the First Glance LA Festival in April for my birthday.
Wow, that's terrific.
Yeah, it's been exciting. We've won a number of awards with this one. We won Award of Excellence and Award of Merit from the accolades, but we also won the Best Short Film at Buffalo, and we're up for Best Ensemble and Best New Jersey Short at the Hang On to Your Shorts Festival, which is April 19th. So
perfectly named. What a great name.
right. And so at the time, I remember just thinking, hey, the kids will have been on a professional film set. They'll know the hierarchy of who's who. How do you do this? How do you hit your mark? How is it different than stage acting, which of course they're all used to because they've been in their school plays, right? But this is different. How are you going to nail this in 3 takes or less? Because if you work on a television show, like I've worked on Law and Order and I've worked on 30 Rock, and they don't have to. I just shot something for Lifetime Movie Channel that's coming out called I Love You, But I Lied. And you know what? You get 3 takes, maybe, and you have to be able to hit it and do it. So I wanted them to have that experience and kind of know the pressure that is. And if they have that experience and people, casting directors and agents see that, they're going to go, hey, this isn't somebody that's green. This is somebody I can put on a set. Plus, they're going to have the reel that proves it, and showing them doing what they do best. So it's been exciting because it's all up to the kids how much they want to take advantage of it, of course, once it's done. The other great thing about this was some people, once going through the process, realized maybe this wasn't for them. Maybe they weren't ready for it yet. Maybe they needed more experience because it is either tougher than they thought, and some people thought it was much more fun than they thought it was going to be. So it just depends on the kid, right? And it also, a large part of the education is the parents. So it's one thing to educate the kids about the business. What's more time consuming is the parents. So, but
yes. Here.
Right. Well, you know what it's like. You're educators, so it's like you're all day in the classroom with them. You've already taught them everything, and then you turn around and the parent is like, I don't get that. Why is that? You know what I mean? And then you have to turn around and regurgitate it all. But so understanding for them that you could take advantage if you want, but once the parents were on set and they saw what went into it, and they had no idea how much went into making a film, then they went, am I really prepared for this too? And then one of our kids in this last film, Danny Davis, who plays the boy, who's hilarious and he's very good, he ended up, I did have him send his headshot and resume to Angus, my child's manager, and they scooped him up right away. They signed him, and they just thought he was fantastic in the film. And he's been, getting great opportunities ever since. So, and he also, when we were at the Hoboken Film Festival, he had 2 directors come up and ask about his availability for their next films. It's just great to have that. You're in these film festivals. If you show up, you're networking, the ability to find more work is there. Some of the kids aren't taking advantage of that, which is understandable because maybe they're just not ready for it, because you have to have a parent that can get you to those auditions. It's not easy. These kids live in New Jersey. It's only half an hour in, but, if you're a working parent, if you get a call at 7 o'clock the night before or an email at between 6 and 7, which is what it usually is, and they're like, your audition's at 3:30 tomorrow. If you have 2 working parents, that's not necessarily doable. It is for my kid because we're both working in the business. So a big part of my job is to educate the parent. Are you really? Every kid wants to do this professionally, but let's experience it so that you can see what it's really going to be like. And some kids went, you know what? I think I'm going to wait on this for a while. I think I'm going to go get some more experience. I'm going to do my school plays. That's a lot,
And it's a tough, one of the things you said at the very beginning is a lesson that I wish more film acting teachers would grant their students. I used to teach at the Chicago Academy for the Arts, and so we had, in the theater department, we had a lot of kids wanting to go to LA and do film, and all they'd done really was stage. One of the things you said that I think is so important to drive home is to think of what your niche is on stage, and especially in an educational theater environment. It's all about pushing your limits and pushing, like, you can, as a 12-year-old, you can play an 85-year-old on your stage and at school, but finding what your niche is in film and television is vital to figure out what your type is.
Right, and I think that it's unfortunate because I remember in school myself, because I was always the large, lumbering character actress. So, of course, I was playing every 85-year-old.
Hi! We would have been against each other in the same parts and come to fisticuffs.
Right, but when you get out in the real world, and I hated hearing this, by the way. I mean, it's like nails against a board to hear this, but if you're thinking of typing as a negative thing, you need to reframe yourself.
Yeah.
Because typing is your friend. Knowing who you are is your friend. Accepting who you are is your friend. And that is so difficult when you've spent thousands of dollars on your education learning how to be able to be anything. I played a black woman in Black No More at the Guthrie Theater, but it was a joke because it was somebody who had a machine, that would change her black. This is not going to happen in real life, people. Right. Yes, you can play anything, and you should have that flexibility, and the training is extremely important. It's going to work down the line. But truth be told, there's always somebody that's more perfect for the part than you are. So when the part is meant to be yours, it will be yours. And when it's not meant to be yours, it's not going to be yours. And coming to an acceptance factor of that and understanding, no, listen, I play bimbo really well, and I'm going to go for bimbo, and I look like a bimbo, and I talk like a bimbo, and I act like
and if you do well at that and you prove yourself, then maybe later people will be more willing to invest their time in you.
Absolutely, because, it all starts out here with you really having, here you've paid these thousands of dollars for your education, but then when you get to town, you really need to meet casting directors, because remember that the casting directors' jobs are on the line too. If they don't bring in, if they have 12 slots, why would they bring in somebody they don't know? That's insane. It's putting their job at risk. They need to know who you are. So it used to be back in the olden days, back when I started out, it was, if you had to pay to meet somebody, it was a scam. And now there still are scams out there, by the way, so beware of those. You never have to pay thousands of dollars for anything. It's a scam. But you may have to pay somewhere between $45 and $120 to meet a really good casting director and go before them and audition so that they can see who you are, and they go, you know what, I'm going to take a chance on them. I'm going to put them in one of my 25 slots I have today. Because if they don't produce, they don't get hired again either. Casting directors get fired from jobs all the time. I've gone in on the same job from 2 different casting directors because they just decided they're not showing me what I want, or who knows why, but their jobs are on the line too, so they really can't take a chance with people they don't know. So when you get out in the real world, all of a sudden you're like, what do you mean I have to pay to meet these people? And go, well, you kind of have to think of it like this. My husband's in business that has nothing to do with show business, thank God. But he has to go to networking events. He pays to go to, this breakfast meeting, this business breakfast meeting, and meet these people and have these contacts. And he pays to go to these other luncheons, and that's where he meets other people that are potentially other business contacts. And this business is no different than that. And if you start to accept that rather than fight it, it's going to make your journey many less years than it was for me, who didn't want to accept it at first. And now, after beating my head against the wall and understanding it better, I really appreciate it, because, listen, I'm going to be your quirky, weird neighbor who's like out to lunch, might even kidnap a kid to, make a... or I pay your doctor, your lawyer, your heavy. What they call in theater, the heavy. I play those authoritative figures all the time as well. It doesn't mean I'm not able to play both, but I have to be able to show a casting director, when I walk in the room, that's what they're expecting. Look at me. I have a weird, long, horseish face. You know what I mean? I just have to accept what I am. I'm not playing Juliet.
Amen. That's such a valuable lesson to learn. I remember learning it sitting in a casting call for a commercial for yeast infection medicine. And I looked around, I'm like, oh, I'm the plump, plain, quirky girl. I'm the plump, plain, quirky girl, because everybody in there was plump and plain and quirky. I was like, man, that sucks. And that was my epiphany of like, you know what? I'm not gonna do this. And it's not for me. The film world is not for me because I'm
But look at what
too
you're getting.
arrogant. I don't know, but but what was your epiphany? Did you have an epiphany when you realized that and embraced it clearly with amazingly positive results?
Well, I think that there were a couple of things that happened. It wasn't just one big aha, but it was how I just saw them finally calling me in. Like, why would I fight what I'm being called in for? It's insane to think, you know what I mean, that if I think I never thought I was glamorous. So let's
Me
you know,
either. Not you. You are. I'm not. Yeah.
But my biggest problem, I guess, was you know, I'm a blonde like you, and I did have several people say to me, "Listen, you're
Thanks,
working."
Aveda. Sorry.
No, that's right. Totally. And I still wish I could be blonde, but the truth of the matter is, I'm working in a city that is looks more urban, and I had to become looking more urban. They're not going to be casting a bunch of people from Minnesota in Law and Order. That's just not going to happen. Although they did cast me as a blonde in Law and Order. But you know, I had a lot more weight on me then, and I looked authoritative. And you know, listen, how are you going to fight when they cast you as a really great role on Law and Order? I was accused of the crime. I had to defend myself. You know what I mean? And it's like, am I going to fight? Why would I fight that? You know? And I don't know. I like playing the weirdos. You know, I'd live to be. I mean, come on, if you've met my family. You'd understand a lot.
Your students are so lucky to have you there to give that framing that you were talking about, that reframing of it, because I think so often it's sort of painted by media and disgruntled folk as being a negative, but you've reframed it beautifully to give those students a way in to not take things personally, to know as a sense of knowing who you are.
Yeah, and I think it's just more than anything, accepting who you are, and if you can understand this, that they may see 100 people for a role, but if you read it as you were walking in the feet of this character, if that was you're going to read it different than all 120 other people that they looked at, and that's what they're looking for. They're looking for, who are you? Who are you that you would, okay, even if I'm playing a mass murderer, right? Who would you be if those circumstances were that, and I decided to kill somebody, how would I be talking about it? As opposed to, how did I think the writer wanted it? You know, they're hoping you're coming in and giving them something really interesting and different, and they're interested in meeting people, and you know, you're solving their problem. If you just come in, and that's what they're looking for, the problem to be solved. Let me cast this role in
the solution. I love that.
Be the solution. How can I come, you know, how are you going to walk in the door and be the solution, where they go, nobody else said it like that. Not that I'm saying, oh, let me say it louder here and up and down. You know what I mean? That's what I'm talking about. But, you know, understanding when a character is lying and not trying to hide it. Or, you know, that, like, how would you do it? Like, I come from a very quirky, very oddball family, so I'm going to have a different take on some scenes that somebody else is. And so often, you know, when you first get students, all they want to do is they see the line is, that word is underlined, that means I am pause is that line, you know, or they see the explanation points, or they see the punctuation, and they don't understand. Get rid of it. Just get rid of it. And say, if I were in these if I understand who I am, where I am, what it is I'm doing, and what I want and why. If I've got all that figured out for this scene, if that's all there, then all I have to do is act on that. You know what I mean? All I have to do is be present and listen, right, and fight for what I want. And, you know, if you're just doing that and in your own unique voice, not trying to be what you think they want you to be, they're going to be so excited to find somebody refreshing and in the moment and honest in the way they're saying it, and that's what they're looking for, because they don't know what they're looking for until they find you, you know. So I think I spent a lot of years, I think, trying to do it right. How do they really want this being seen? Jeez, what are they looking for? Well, it's a just go in there and sorry. Sorry. Just go in there and do it the way you would do it, and that's what's gonna. Hey, listen, even if you're too tall or too short or too wide or your eyes are the wrong color, or hey, you remind them of their brother they hate.
Yeah.
That casting director, if you did a good job and you made what they call interesting choices, which interesting just means you've made all the choices. You haven't left any stone unturned in that scene. You've answered all the questions, right, in your mind about why it's happening that way and how your character is, what it is they want. If you're doing all of that, you've made the interesting choice, because you'll hear that in casting director workshops all the time. Well, we're looking for somebody who makes interesting choices. Well, all that means is you've answered every question there was to answer in that scene in your mind. Like, you already have it framed. You know what that scene's all about when you walk in the room. You know what your relationship is to all those different characters.
That you had an interest in making a choice, that it wasn't just
that you took time to prepare and make a choice.
Yeah.
And
yeah, because if you're not going to make a choice, why'd you show up? They need to know you understand the scene. And they'll always ask you when you walk in the room, by the way, they'll always say, do you have any questions? And they're not looking for you to make something up, just to talk with them. They really want to know, do you have any questions? Because often you get 2 or 3 pages of the script and you have no idea. I mean, I literally had to ask them, am I the murderer or am I not?
That's a good question. They would probably be glad you wondered that.
Exactly. And now on a question like that, they would probably answer, yes, you did the crime. Yes, because it's going to help you make informed choices in the scene based on that. Because if you did think you were innocent, the choices are going to be all wonky. It's not going to work. But there are some choices that I've come in the room and said, is she? I'm trying to think of a good instance of where I've said, like just something stupid like, did she steal that or did she not steal that or whatever it was, and they've just said, I don't know, make an interesting choice, let's see what you got. Where they're not going to answer that. But they did ask you if you had any questions, and sometimes they'll say, let's see what you got first, and then we'll work with it and change it. But often they're just looking to see what you have, what you came up with in the first place, and if it's so, wrong based on, they're gonna do an adjustment. And sometimes they'll do a wacky adjustment to you, and they're just trying to see if you'll take the direction.
Yeah.
I mean, just something totally off the wall. And if you go for it 110%, that's what they're looking for. Will she take the adjustment, or are they going to give it to me the exact same way they rehearsed it 100 million times? And now,
or are they going to go, I don't think my character would do that.
Oh my God.
Sorry.
The questioning the choices of the casting director are not wise.
Right. Probably wasn't a good idea.
Well, you could reframe it and say, I thought she was innocent. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
No, go for it. I mean, just being willing to. I have to tell you, more often than not, I'm ending up doing improvisation in auditions, where they'll say, yeah, do the take on. Now, this is only like comedy, usually comedy shows, but actually the thing that I just did for Lifetime was supposed to be all improvisation, the initial audition and everything. So if you don't, as a student, have improv skills, you must get them. All, by the way, all commercial auditions involve improv. Even when it's a strictly script thing, they'll usually have you do it once, scripted, and then they'll say, okay, guys, let's just do our own thing. Let's take it from the top. So if you are scared of improv, or improv is something you don't do well, I cannot stress to you how much it's of vital importance, especially in the commercial world. I just did a Toyota commercial that's still out there on the web. or I'm playing Deb, the mother that texts when she drives. And that whole thing was improv. The entire thing was improv. So you just have to be prepared to do that. If you're not strong at it, just constantly be in classes, because it teaches you to say yes and yes and add to it, and that's so important, so that you're not the one that's killing the scene. I've seen people in auditions just shoot themselves in the foot, because they don't know how to say yes and. So that's an important skill to get.
And when you teach your students, I'm assuming that you must fold that into your instruction.
Oh, absolutely. I've done just improvisation classes right now. I'm so busy with the production of other things in the film festivals right now that all I'm doing is private coaching. But I have some kids that actually take it as duos, like they get together and we do it, and that's also one of the things that, especially the kids that are trying to go pro, especially.
And really, if you're doing it right, the script, in my point of view, is really just a very complex set of improv rules. Like, you have to do the scene and you have to say these words, but it should have the feel of improvising.
Yeah, if you're living in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
You're living in the moment. Plus, if you've that's why I like blank scenes. Do you guys do blank scenes with your kids?
Mm-hmm.
I love those, where it's just an A-B. It's a nonsensical scene, but you put the set of circumstances on it, the who, what, where, it was going on, and then you let the kid decide the why, and it'll be just something like, character 1 says, I've never been here, and character 2 says, you were here yesterday. Just you're standing at the train station, right? Nothing makes any sense. But then you put a set of circumstances on top of it, their relationship, that's all improv, but yet you have a script. It teaches students right away that the words mean nothing. It's the intention underneath the words that means everything, and that's when you see some exciting choices, because I think young actors are unaware that the characters lie. So just like people do. How surprising. So they may be saying one thing, but what they're lying about underneath is far more interesting.
And lying to themselves and
right.
Yeah.
That's why those blank scenes are really fun to do. I always do those with kids, because it's
I didn't have a good name for them before now. I did them, but I didn't. And now I have the name. I'm stealing that.
Sometimes we call them A-B scenes too.
Yeah, A-B scenes. A-B, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, A-B scenes. So I find those very useful. But we are excited right now, because we have 3 festivals on one day.
Ooh.
And
holy smokes.
And I feel really bad, because the kids could be at, one is in Victoria, Texas, which we can't do. We had applied to RXSM, which is like the Slam Dance to Sundance to South by Southwest, right? And the guy that's a programmer of it contacted me and said, I love this film. Because it's short films, they have to try to fit them into, most festivals try to put short films that have like a similar theme or a similar something going on has some kind of a theme. And he was like, yours just doesn't fit any of the themes here with the other films. But we have another festival in Victoria that I'm also the programmer of. Would you do it? And I was like, yes. And I really wanted to go to Texas, because I have family there and I would like to shoot something there. It's a very shooting friendly state. And you might know, it's the same day as Garden State Film Festival, the same day as the Catra Film Festival, and the same day, so we just can't be 3 places at once. But, if the kids can get to one that is, doesn't have a bunch of other films that is swearing and, sexual content in it, then they can come and hang out and watch their film and talk about it afterwards. So we're excited about this next Saturday.
So, what is kind of the process to getting into Film Fest, and once you get in, what is that time there like?
Well, the greatest thing about the film festivals is meeting other people that are doing the same thing you're doing. So the learning curve and the meeting of people that you can hopefully maybe even collaborate or contact them and say, hey, what did you do about this problem? Or do you know, like if you get stuck, sometimes you're shooting, but all of a sudden your sound guy gets hired for a much more expensive project or something, that you can turn around and be like, contact these filmmakers, and say, who did your sound on your film? Because you know what? I saw that film and the sound was good. So did you like working with that person? Did you, for me as a producer, it's all about meeting people that I can hopefully collaborate with later or source, resources from. And the other thing is to see other films that are out there. This is the most important, is to see the other films that are out there and see the acting that's happening and seeing the technique they are using to create their films, because each film is made with its very own story behind it, and finding out, because there's a talk back afterwards. I find those festivals that have the talk back afterwards where the filmmakers stand up and talk about and answer questions about their film, those are the most interesting. It's just what you learn is just huge. And for the kids coming to the festivals, other filmmakers are so impressed with our kids in these films. I was at the In the Moment festival not long ago, and I had 2 people come up and just say, hey, can I just come on set and watch your process, because I can't believe how good that acting is with the kids. And most filmmakers, especially young filmmakers, are too scared to work with kids because let's face it, some of those filmmakers that are coming out of film school they're not actors first. They come from it usually from a different discipline, so them talking to actors is not their strength yet when they're young filmmakers. So for them to go hire a kid is even scarier, because they're like, well, how do I get this kid to act, and so I've had a lot of people very interested in the kids because they are so good. They're so natural looking. They're just amazing in it. So for them, it's, if the kids are at the festival, they get to have these people just fawning over them, which is really nice. But if they don't show up to the festival, it doesn't really happen. So if you have to take advantage of the festivals, when you apply for them, there's several different websites that you can do it with. Some of them make you send in the DVDs, but the cool sites like Film Freeway, I hope they understand I'm giving a little plug here. Film Freeway, you just mount a Vimeo link with a password. It all has to be password protected. And they look at your film and they make a decision, the programmers. Sometimes it's like 4 deep. How many different sets of programs do they put it through, depending on how big the festival is, how reputable the festival is, how long the festival's been around, how many people have to look at it before they decide that the film will pass and get through. Sometimes they're very small film festivals and it's 1 or 2 programmers, and it's, and then once these films are chosen, sometimes you'll apply for the film because they have early deadline, regular deadline, late deadlines. You submit and then you wait. You might not hear till 6 months later whether or not you're in the film festival or not. And then when they tell you you're accepted, they give you laurels that you can, tweet and advertise and put on your websites and tell people about. And then there's distributors at these film festivals. So if your film is really well loved, a distributor may pick it up. They go there looking to buy content. They are looking to buy content. So we've had our film looked at by several different like cable networks and whatnot, but it's a little controversial. Unfortunately, I was thinking about getting my kids work, right, and giving them a workout. I wasn't thinking about trying to sell a film when we made it. I know more now, and I would maybe be a little more savvy about it in the future. But first of all, short films, they used to say you never sell a short film, but that's not true anymore because there's so many, new media sites that are looking for short films. But even if I were to, we would like to do a feature next, is what our film company would like to do, a feature next, obviously, because you get taken a little more seriously. And I've got 2 feature ideas that I really would like to shoot. But if you get into these festivals once, they do want to see your work again, so the likelihood of getting into it again is better if they've really liked your work to begin with. Our film doesn't really fit a genre because there's kids in it, but it's not a kid flick. So it's had a tough time with finding its place, so I think some festivals have gone, even though we've gotten in a lot of festivals, I think they've gone, where do I put it? Because it's definitely not a kid flick. So sometimes the kids can't come to the festivals because we're in with, like, this last festival, everything was great up until our film, and then after that there was, girls on the pole and everything.
Oh no.
and they had forewarned me. I always have to ask the festival, can the kids come, or can't they come, or So we've had a little tough time with that, but I know that, like, Hang On to Your Shorts, and for sure they've put us in a section where all the kids can come because they knew we asked about it, and they were like, sure. So Chris Cullen has been great about meeting our request so the kids can come and see themselves.
And have they enjoyed the talkback process?
Are you kidding? I don't know who's glowing more, the kid or the parent. It's great. I think Danny's been at most of the festivals that he can be at. And of course, they always want to ask the kids questions about it. The filmmakers are very interested about, how did you feel about the process? What was the most surprising thing to you? Which, of course, it's always, I didn't know we were going to be sitting around waiting for that long, and, how many times we'd have to do the takes, even though I told them this for months, okay? But that's what I mean. You can talk about this all you want, but the experience of doing it is night and day. They really understood. Once they did the film, me yapping at the mouth about it, was like, yada yada lady, when are we going to be on set? When do I get my take? And then when they realize they have to, we got to repeat that how many times? And we got to hit the mark again. And, I only got how many times to get this right? Or how about the people in my scene can't screw up? Because there were 5 lead actors. So for those 5 leads to be on each take, we rehearsed for 12 weeks. Let me just put it that way. You want to work with kids in a film, rehearse them. That's, actually, you should do it with everybody. Mae West. Do you know that Mae West saved Paramount from bankruptcy?
No, tell me.
This is an interesting story. Mae West, because I played her 1,000 times.
Of course you have.
Mae West saved them because when she came in to make her film, she rehearsed the entire film for 2 weeks before they started shooting. And back then, remember, it was real film, so it was extremely expensive. And so she saved them so much money on their budget because the film was rehearsed. And me coming from a theater background, I totally believe in this method. So not only did we rehearse, like, in a studio, getting ready for it, then I took them on location and rehearsed it several times so that they would not freak out when they got on location. And then when, and we had our DP come out and just follow them around. He was just like taking his hands and following them around and getting a shot list set up so that he knew, with the director. That's why we were able to shoot the whole thing in 4 days. Because had we not had that kind of a rehearsal process, see, this is something that educators could do. Not only do you guys have the resources that I don't have, like, you probably have, like, film departments that have this equipment already. You're not having to rent it like I'm out there renting dollies and, buying crew members. You probably have people within your institutions that you can collaborate with and do this and do it for no money, or basically no money. And you've got facilities, like you've got buildings and, all sorts of different places for locations that are very difficult to acquire, like a school location. Let me tell you, that is not an easy location to book. So I think that, being able to do this, like, I wish my theater program or my, and the film program in the, institutions that I went to were talking and collaborating and getting it done, which of course they're doing it at NYU Film School, but they're not using their actors from those programs. At NYU, they're using professional actors. They put out a casting call, and those student filmmakers are are using professional actors. And so Columbia, same thing. And I'm always telling my students, audition for those, because those are your future filmmakers. And they are, it's going to get you real, it's going to get you experience on set. You don't know where those NYU film grad students are going to end up in their career, and you're going to have worked with them already. It's an incredible experience and opportunity to get experience without, worried that, you're working with Scorsese and you'll never work again. So there's been a lot of huge learning curves for people on this process.
I'm sure everyone involved. Can I ask what got you into teaching? You've still got a pretty vibrant performing career as well. So what got you into
Well, I did it, before I moved to New York, I lived in Minneapolis, St. Paul, which is, let me just tell you, what a strong theater community, what a great theater community. And I was working at like the History Theater a lot, and I did work at the Guthrie, and I worked Mixed Blood. I mean, you name the theater in town, I think everything except for the Old Log or Chanhassen I worked at. And but they never really, because it's Minnesota, their contracts were small contracts. They weren't like huge paying, it's not gonna, unless you're working at the Guthrie, you're not really, or the Ordway, which I did, those places could pay your rent, and you could live off of that, but you're only going to do that show how many times,
Right.
You're not. So you had to supplement your income somehow, and I did teach acting, especially to kids, and that's where I really cut my teeth on understanding kids and really understanding how kids work and how they have different, I think, they have little different needs than adult actors do, and how you explain something and you really break it down is important to do it, and it's important to be supportive and genteel and loving.
Do you find that teaching the students and sort of answering that need to articulate process in that particular way has informed your own performances as well?
Yeah, you know what it's like when you're a teacher. Every time you're teaching, you're learning. And the same with my son, who's doing it, and he just doesn't even know what he's doing, but he's doing it. But the beauty of watching the innocence of the approach teaches me to simplify. Mm-hmm. On a constant basis. The need to do less is more. When you're watching somebody who's working way too hard, I'm a person that if you let me, I'd overwork something to death as an actor. So watching a kid just take this simple choice and just say it. No, don't act it. Just say it.
Yeah, I'll make every word a meal if you let me.
Right, exactly. So teaching it keeps you fresh. It also keeps you in awe of the fact that you can play for a living. Whenever I get overwrought about things in the business, I just think, remember, it's called a play.
Yeah, there's a reason they call it a play. I find too, and maybe you do too, or maybe this wasn't an issue for you to start with, but a lot of what I would look for in my students, or I would see that they would have an impulse to move or to stand or to walk, and I would say, don't block it, just let that go with that and see where that takes you, and be brave and dive in, and don't be afraid to make a really stupid choice, just go for it. And then I would go into my own acting and I would be like, I'd hear my teacher voice at myself and know often that my students were going to come see it and think, oh, man, no, I have to do that. No, I have to be brave.
Yeah, you have to be responsible. Yeah, exactly. You have to be brave and be just not afraid to fail. I think more importantly, because when I see the fear in them, it breaks my heart, because there's no wrong. You just do it again. You know what I mean? Like, you learn so much from failing, that if you don't fail, you're never going to get better, You think you're brilliant, you know?
Yeah, you would never ask a kid, okay, you're going to learn to ride your bike today, but you're not allowed to fall down.
Hmm.
So go. Um,
Yeah.
you know, that you'd never want to ride a bike.
No, no, exactly. You know, and I guess the most, if I'm going to bring that to an exact example of what I use in the classroom, is I even use my iPad and I record them when they're, even if it's stage stuff, I record them and we watch it back. And I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, if you would have made me do that, I would have thrown up. Like if I would have had to look at myself on film, and initially some kids will say, I don't want to watch myself, I don't want to watch myself, and I'm just always like get over it,
Too
because
bad.
you know, the quicker you do that, the quicker you learn how to self-correct. And sometimes, yeah, you don't want to be sitting and judging and all that kind of stuff, and there's a place for that. And that's where improv is. You know what I mean? That's where improv is. But in order to teach a kid right away, you know, my 7-year-old will look at a take and go, oh, erase it. Do it again. You know, because now he's just so used to looking at it and going, really being able to give yourself constructive, loving criticism and saying, can you see why that doesn't work? And no judgment on it. Can you just see why it doesn't work?
Or I wish I did that more.
Yeah. Well, let's do it again. Let's do it again. You know, and I load the videos up on unlisted YouTube. You know, I put it on my YouTube channel, and then I keep it unlisted, and then I send them the links, and I say, you know, take a look at it and think about it for a week, and you know, and then we're gonna get rid of it because we're moving on. You know, because you learn from those mistakes, and if they can see the mistake right there, like I have one student right now, and she's just great, she's so determined, she's working so hard, but there's just little habits that when you've been rewarded for being over the top theater person for a long time, you know, and being like, you know, the reaction person that's doing the fakey reaction stuff for a long time. I'll tell you, you'll see, you know, there's a place for that. It's called Commedia, and I really love it. But if you know that, oh, that's not appropriate for this material, you know, and I have to look at it and be honest with it. There's nothing like watching yourself do it to correct it, you know, and you go, oh, because I love when they go, I didn't do that, and I'm like, oh, gee.
I didn't green screen it. It was really there.
Yeah, but you know, now all my students, nobody thinks twice about it. They just know that the iPad's going to be on, and we're just going to record it, and I stand there and I erase it, you know, because I don't have enough room on my iPad anyway. So it has no meaning. The meaning is, can we learn? It's a learning tool. It's a learning tool.
And I would think too that gives them to get used to it and sort of be over the sacredness of seeing yourself and yourself vulnerable. I would think that's a gift too to acting, to casting directors as well, because I know one of the things when I'm directing that I just don't want to have to deal with is someone who's so needy and constantly needs to be, oh no, you're great, you're great. And I think that what you've done by getting them used to seeing themselves with a critical, but not with a critiquing, but not critical eye, is to give them sort of a calm, assertive view of themselves and not need to be taken care of emotionally.
Yeah, I think and there's always something good that you can point out. Like there's always something good in the take, no matter how terrible, you know, something else happened, like a tick. Some people just have tics, you know, and that's maddening for them. But you can stand there and go, yeah, you got the tick. But look at where you were there. You were really present in that moment. How can we find a place for you to live in your head that you're constantly present like that? Because if you made all your choices, all this other stuff's going to go away. It's just that you haven't accepted your choices yet, you know. So, and it's different for each thing. But, you know, when I watch, that's exactly it. Plus, they're going to get used to, listen, you're not going to get an agent or a manager in any of the bigger markets like New York or LA unless you are working in film and television and commercials, because that's what makes them money. The 10% off the stage work, that's not making them the money. So, you know, you have to get used to a camera at some point, whether you like it or not. it's as long as you are self-accepting. I'm not saying that's easy.
No, and it's a process.
It's a process, and I'm so glad I'm old now because, it's taken, now I'm into my type. You know what I mean? Like, now I'm into my type.
Yeah.
And if you can look at kids and go, listen, you know what I mean? You're going to go through this type for a while. You're going to go through that. Look at what you look like now. Accept it. Love it. If you don't like your hair, then do something about it. Quit your
You're fine.
and do.
We'll take care of it in post. Don't worry.
Is there a 7-second delay on this thing?
Just don't have any wardrobe malfunctions and we'll be all right, okay?
I have a really good story about a wardrobe malfunction.
Oh, bring it.
Okay, so, when I first came to New York, and this is something, this is really good for kids to hear, actually, if you're going to move to New York. I did EPAs, which are called Equity Principal Auditions. Do you guys talk about those? Where the shows have to, because of the union rules, they have to hold these open auditions, whether they're looking for somebody or not. Sometimes they are really looking for somebody for replacements in the cast. Well, I did. This is so embarrassing. I think I did 120 of them in 1 year. I mean, I showed up to the Lion King. Because my thought process was, hey, they may not be casting me in this one, but, they'll think of me for something else.
And you get your experience, and who knows? Sure,
idiot.
I would talk myself into it, too. I would have been an idiot, too.
You idiot. So, I mean, listen, when you get knowledge from me, it's because I made the mistakes already. I'm not making it up. Yeah. I go into this Cameron McIntosh audition. And Cameron McIntosh is in the room. That never happens, by the way, at EPAs. That means they must really be looking for somebody. Like, if it's not the assistant of the assistant who just got the coffee, who had to show up to watch it. So I did Everybody's Girl from Steel Pier. Do you know that number? Mm-hmm. But I had not gotten my fashion sense together in New York yet. And I was wearing a button-down jean dress. And, and it gets to that line, if you got it, why not spread it? And I, made this big motion, and the whole dress went upward.
They didn't forget you. The good news is they remembered you.
Now, luckily, because I'm a nice girl from Minnesota, I had a slip-on. A split slip. My navel, everything was out. And the accompanist just took, I can't even say it now because I'm laughing so hard. Accompanist just took my book and slammed it shut. Like, didn't finish it. Just slammed the book shut, and you just saw the looks on it. I mean, it was just like, what kind of fruitcake do we have in here? And he hands it to me like, get out. The whole time I'm re-snapping myself, and it's like those,
And then you said something like, thank you very much. Again, my name is Allison Jamie. I'll see you later. And ran. Yeah.
And all I could say was, that wasn't planned. It wasn't planned. I'm not a freak. I'm not a freak.
No.
Hey. Oh my God, if my band.
Did you get the part?
No, but you know what? I did get hired out of EPAs. I got Dirty Blonde, the lead role, Joe, Dirty Blonde, because they were really looking. And guess what? I was actually right for that part. So that was an EPA I should have showed up to, which I did. And I also got 3 callbacks, met Mel Brooks for producers out of it.
Oh, that's exciting.
So, yeah, I mean, EPAs are not necessarily, you just have to know, oh, am I castable in this project?
Well, and I think it's a golden rule. It's something to keep in mind for everybody auditioning for anything. There's always another show.
There's and there's always a better dress to wear.
And always wear a slip.
Like your mother told you, in case you're in a car accident, you better be wearing a slip. or audition with Cameron McIntosh.
Oh, that's hilarious. Thank you for sharing that. And she lived to tell, everyone.
And here I am, and I'm still working. However, I think my stand-up is going to do better than anything. Just telling the stories that I've made mistakes with. Terrible, terrible.
I always say that to my students. You're so lucky because I've pretty much fallen in every manhole, so I can point and say, "Don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. Oh, don't do that."
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. If you want to live through everything with pain, then do it the wrong way, or
benefit from my experience. Ditch the gene stress. Yeah.
Get a new wardrobe when you move to New York. You can't get the arm out of the girl, but she can still wear the dress. Oh Lord, yeah. So that's what I don't know. I also have fun just telling these stories to the kids. Then they do, they learn by osmosis. But we've had most of my kids are that are currently training with me right now are going to try to make the next leap forward. So one of the things that we're doing is in lessons we're getting ready to do some taping. We're going to do create a webisode workshop this summer. That's one of the things that we're going to work on, so that they can learn how to shoot and edit and light it properly. So you just, and it's not obviously something that we're planning on it being a successful endeavor. It's just a learning tool so that they can see, because all these people are putting up webisodes and doing self-content, and the more tools they have to be able to do it themselves. And I edit in Final Cut, X, and iMovie is the simpler version of that. But if they can learn how to do that and be able to edit their own reels, it's just going to save them so much time and money. And
there's a lot of resources out there, and you have such a wide experience because you've kind of staged theater, film, TV, and new media. You were in High Maintenance, which is one of those webisodes that, I heard about it on NPR. It's just one of those things that...
it's a huge hit, and it was started, produced by and written by Katja Blichfeld, who was the casting director for 30 Rock. And that's how this is an example of how these casting director workshops can work for you. I did a casting director workshop a long time ago, and my Katja Blichfeld was there, and she saw me, and I got called in for 30 Rock, and I got cast in 30 Rock. I had a nice, tiny, tiny little role, but it's hard to get roles on 30 Rock because it's mostly stars. So it was great to get that. And then later on, she was looking for that role in High Maintenance and contacted the person who ran the casting that casting workshop and said, we're looking for somebody for this. And she said, well, what about Rosalie? And she was like, oh my God, of course. And they just hired me like that because she had remembered my work from that. So even though people get very frustrated about maybe having to go to those meet and greets and show people your wares and have to pay for it, 2 jobs out of that, and 2 high-profile jobs, so they do pay off. They are worth it. I can't say enough. I ended up getting Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close due to going to a casting director workshop where the guy was reminding me after I had been at an Onion network audition, which he really loved, and I got called back for it, but I didn't get cast in it. And then I walked in and saw him. He brought me in for Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, and I got cast in that. So it's these casting director workshops where you go and you meet people. I got my manager out of one of those. I went to a place where they had 10 managers, and I went in and did a scene, and we met and signed the next day. And so I can't say enough good things about doing it as long as you're smart about it. You're not wasting your money. You are going into places that and that Bonnie Gillespie book would help you with that, where it talks about who's really, they teach you how to like find, well, which casting director is really casting my type? Like, where do I belong? You know, if you look at me, where do I belong? You know, yeah, maybe Blue Bloods, maybe Good Wife, if I'm playing those authoritative type figures, right? And then obviously, if you haven't noticed by now, I like to be funny, and so you know, I've given up my musical theater career, as you can, but I would love to do it again, you know. But since I've been with child, I've, you know, moved over into film and television just because it's quicker, easier in and easier out, rather than having these. I could go do a stage play again now because he's old enough and he's in school, but before that it was hard. You go through different life transitions, and the career has to follow you that way, you know, eventually. So that's pretty much it. But I'm happy and grateful.
As you are doing all these different mediums, what, Danielle, are a little bit geeky sometimes, and what tech tools have you found help you as an actor? I think you mentioned some great things that you are using.
Final Cut, you know, I know that some real editors don't like it, but even the real editors have moved over to it. Like our film was actually edited on Final Cut X, Final Cut 10, and I'm not good enough to be the editor on my film. I would never be that dumb to do that. But I'm able to cut reels for the kids on it, and I use I guess I really hire people to do all of our sound and everything. You cannot skimp on sound. But as a business person, as an actor, I use Twitter. I use Facebook. I'm ashamed to say that we actually have 4 Twitter accounts because there's me, Rosalie Tenseth, as the actor. There's Acting with Pros, which is, you know, my coaching. Failure Groupies, which is our film that's out right now, has to have its own Twitter. And Boy with Stick Productions, which is my production company. So they all have, and Twitter's been great. You guys, I would have met you guys without Twitter. It's been a fantastic tool, and Facebook is both my personal and professional. I haven't branched over, but the Failure Groupies and Acting Academy have their own Facebook pages, and that's the quickest way for me to reach people. I wish I could get people to. Parents aren't still there yet. The kids are. You know what I mean? But the
kids are one step ahead of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Twitter, whatever that is.
They run screaming from whatever social media we migrate to.
Sure. But the iPad, listen, I'm telling you, shooting on the iPad and the cameras, and I have an iPhone 6 right now, that the camera on that is great. You can use that for shooting. I shoot that. I mount it to the web. I'm on Vimeo. Vimeo, extremely important. I have a pro account on there, obviously, for the film stuff. Dropbox. Dropbox is something that I use. I put the kids' auditions, their self-tapes that have to go to LA, that I do that for kids. I'll do their audition tapes that have to go to LA for their auditions. And I put that on Dropbox. That's how most of the casting directors want it. Actors Access. We use Actors Access for kids self-submitting for projects. It's a very, very useful website. In fact, by the way, all of our managers and agents use those Actors Access. That's where they access our headshots and our resume and everything from. So that's pro to somebody just getting started in the business, getting that count up. And then I have to say that right now I think the Twittering thing is the thing I spend the most time on to advertise what we're up to with the film right now. That's about it for tech tools.
Well, that's great.
I'm sure there's something else. I'm just forgetting it.
No, I think you've given us a great variety, and I'm going to check out that Actors Access because I hadn't heard of that before.
I just put it up on our show notes, too, so people can go check it out.
Well, I think we have learned so many gems of knowledge and been thoroughly entertained.
That was an abs workout for me. That counts, so I can eat chocolate.
I love it. And Google Chat. We did our production meetings on Google Chat. You know that? With the director and the first AD and I. That's how we ran our meetings, because I'm out here in Jersey and they're in the city.
Well, I think technology has sped up a lot of the parts of the business. I still think, like you said, we are human beings and we're actors and we need that face time in front of people, and that's why
Mhm.
you've discussed those casting director workshops, because you need to see how they're going to act on set, and that gives you that practice to do that. And
Right.
if it's a reasonable amount, I you know, as long as it's not thousands of
No,
dollars, but
should never be that. It should never be. If it is, you're
you know,
getting scammed.
45 to 100 ish. That I mean, those are the ones who committed, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
If
the people that approach you in the
if
mall.
you're willing to pay $50, I mean, it's not, you're not going to break the bank, but it's not also, you can get a decent amount of stuff with
Right.
$50 too. But that says this is something I want to pursue, and I'm willing to take this time so you can rent a space and that we can all meet together
Hmm.
and look at an opportunity to connect and meet with people, then and share your talent, then I think you're
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, and there are two camps to it. There are some people that are like, you should never have to pay to blah blah. But the reality is, those casting directors, if they don't know you, how are they going to bring you in? Just by your agent pitching? There's too few slots, So I personally have gotten more work by going to meet the people. That's been my experience, and that's all I can speak to is my experience. And other actors that I know are getting hired that way. So it's I wish it wasn't like that. I wish it wasn't a pay to play system. It's not good. It's not perfect. The casting directors will tell you the same thing. But in the meantime, how are they supposed to take a risk on somebody they absolutely don't? Listen, if you speak Farsi and you juggle and they need a Farsi juggler, yes, if that's just on your resume, you're going to be called in. You know what I'm saying? Um, it's different for people who have highly specialized skills that, if they're going to bring you in if they haven't met you, if they're very desperate for that specific type. But if you're, Joe Schmo character actress like I am, or you're just young and pretty, and there's a lot of young and pretty, how are you going to, which young and pretty are they going to, they're going to bring in the one that already has the resume first.
Mm-hmm.
So to first get started, or that they've worked with, that they know is reliable, that's going to come in and knock it out of the park and make them look good. You have to get in front of them to go, I'm reliable. Look, I'm not a nutcase. I may be pretty, but I'm not stupid. Or they have to know who you are. Because remember, if they're looking for that one person that makes a really interesting choice that is only the choice that you can make, how are they going to know that if they've not met you? It's not a perfect system. It really isn't. I mean, I so wish it was not like this. But right now, it's the way it is. And maybe it'll change because maybe they'll see us all. If you have real, yeah, that's helpful. But then how are you going to get them to look at the real?
Mm-hmm.
If you send them a postcard saying it was great to meet you last Thursday and here's the link to my reel. That is downloadable from your website or from Vimeo or from YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
If it's downloadable, that they can send off to a producer and go, what do you think? So it's one thing to have reel on your site. It's got to be downloadable. And by the way, people don't do standard reels as much anymore either. The big long reel that has you doing, 3 minutes of your best work. They want it in clips.
Mm-hmm.
Here's me doing quirky. If you go to my website, rosalietenseth.com, you'll see it. Quirky friend. You really label it by the stereotype, typing thing. You go, being the quirky friend, being the cop, whatever it is. And that's what's on my website, so that they can see, and they can just look at that clip if that's what they're looking for. Think of them as a buyer and you as a seller.
I can totally see how the business, boom, that's what they're looking for.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you just show them there it is. You can look at me doing 3 or 4 different things. Which one do you want? And then they send it off and go, what do you think of that? They're going to have a good idea from that.
Well, thank you again for joining us. And
thank you.
How can people find you on the interwebs?
On the interweb, well, I'm at my website is rosalietenseth.com. We also, for our film, it's failuregroupies.com, just like the word failure and groupies, IES. And on the Twitter, I'm at Rosalie Tenseth, which is an odd spelling. It's ROSALIETENSETH, Tenseth, but it's Norwegian, so it's weird. And then we're also at Boy with Stick Productions. We're at Boy with Stick Productions online as well. So there's too many of us, and it's one person.
And Danielle.
Sometimes it feels like a lot of people inside me too, just so you know. You can find me on Twitter at Ms. Filas, MSFILAS, or you can check out my blog, which actually has new posts, everyone. Aren't you proud of me? At edunerd.blogspot.com. How about you, Big Nick? How can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at edtech4theater and edtech4theater.com. And don't forget to celebrate World Theater Day, March 27th, and go to worldtheaterday.info and find out how to get involved. Plenty of stuff to do there. Share photos, do a video of why theater is important to you, connect, and be a part of Hangout Theater on the 27th that I'm trying to get all scheduled out or trying to connect people. And so go there and be a part of it. And thanks again for joining us this week.
Thank you for having me. You guys are a riot.
Thanks so much, Rosalie.
Thank you.